In today's video, we're going to be going over part 1 out of 2 of this colder pattern, which is going to be taking place over the central and eastern United States. Now, tomorrow I won't be able to make a video on that day because I'm not going to have any time, so I'm going to be pre-recording that tonight and then uploading it tomorrow. So when you guys see the part 2 of this video, it'll actually be pre-recorded, so none of the information will be completely up to date, although we're talking about a longer range topic, so it's not going to need to be let's say within 6 or 12 hours of you seeing it. It's going to be one of those type of things where it doesn't have to be let's say within 24 hours of me uploading it when you actually see it. So some of the information might be slightly outdated. I'm going to be recording it tonight, so I will try and make it as late as possible so that the information is up to date. But again, I'm not going to be able to record tomorrow, so I still wanted to have a video out for you guys. So we're going to make a two-parter. The first part will be, again, uploaded today, and then second part will be uploaded tomorrow. So let's get into it, and let's start off with your weather photo of the day. Thank you to Trevin for sending this in from North Platte, Nebraska. This is the snowstorm that happened on Monday morning in a lot of these areas, and it's a really great photo because it does give you a good idea of what actually happened. I really like how the picture features the telephone poles as well in those lines, because you can see that the snow was really heavy, making these telephone lines really sag down. So that's one of the things that I do like about the picture. You can see how heavy the snowfall was based on these lines right here. Of course, you can see the snow piling up even on surfaces like cars and roofs as well, which can be a difficulty to accumulate on earlier on in the season, but it looks like they really didn't have too much trouble. He was telling me that in the comment section that it took a little bit of time, not too much time, but eventually you started to get more of that accumulating, especially as we got overnight. When the sun started to go down, you didn't have to fight the sun angle anymore, and you could actually get more of that accumulating snowfall. So thank you again to Trevin for sending that in. They got about 5 to 6 inches of snowfall based on reports from that area, so really cool photo. If you guys ever do get any snowfall or ice or anything like that you want to send in during the winter time, be sure to send it in. And even if it's not related to anything that's happening right now, or even if it's just a smaller thing like a cloud, maybe a sunset or a sunrise that you want to send it in, send it over to elitheweatherguyyt at gmail.com. And if you just send in a general location of where that happened, so again, it does not have to be a specific town name. It could just be a state or a part of a state where that was taken from. Just give a general location and then send that over, and I'll feature it in the beginning of the video. So here's a look at what the current National Weather Service page looks like. You can see that we have some high wind warnings up into parts of California and Oregon, with some winter weather advisories in Colorado and Wyoming, as well as for a little bit of the UP of Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, and even into some parts of northern New York as well. So that's where we could be dealing with a little bit of snowfall added on for later today and tomorrow. We have some freeze watches in the light blue for parts of Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, a little bit of Illinois and Missouri. We then have some frost advisories. That's for some parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. And I think also DC as well. We have some freeze warnings up for some parts of Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, as well as Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, Indiana, Ohio, and West Virginia, with some freeze warnings as of right now. So pretty interesting day. We're going to be talking about the colder air a little bit more in today's video, but overall, it's a fairly active day in terms of snow as well as cold air, and especially for November 1st. So I forgot to actually change this, but this is November 1st, not October 1st. Yesterday we saw in Zapata, Texas, the high temperature of 93 degrees. The low temperature was -2 in White Sulphur Springs, Montana, and Chote, Montana as well, where they got, again, down to -2 degrees. Kingfield, Maine, which is in the northwestern part of the state, got 2.3 inches of rainfall, and the highest snowfall report was in Grant, Nebraska, which is actually fairly close to North Platte, where they got 7.5 inches of snowfall. So here's a look at the snowfall accumulation from yesterday, just to give you a good idea of what actually happened in these spots. You can see that we did see some rather high amounts, especially as you get into the UP of Michigan. So the lower peninsula got about a dusting to 3 inches, especially once you got inland. And then also in the inland part of the western UP, they got closer to 6, 7, and maybe even 8 or 9 inches of snow. And then really that eastern end of the UP with a really steady northwesterly wind blowing on some lake effect snowfall into these areas, they were able to get closer to 15 inches of snowfall in some of those spots. So pretty interesting. We did see some light dustings and coatings of snowfall into New York as well as for West Virginia. So overall, it was a fairly decent day in terms of lake effect, and we're still seeing some more being generated for later today and Wednesday. We also had a little bit of snow into northern Minnesota as well. So here's a look at the temperature map, and this is what we're mainly going to be focusing in on in today's video. And then in tomorrow's video, we'll take a look at some of the upper air maps and the teleconnections to give you a good idea of what's happening there. So starting off with tomorrow, which is Wednesday, you can see that we do have some temperatures getting down into the 20s over a good portion of the country. And if you're wondering about the areas that might see a frost, well, it'll basically be anywhere that's sort of in this color right here. So these areas that live north of this line will probably be getting their first frost of the season for Wednesday morning, especially, where it will be rather chilly, probably one of the colder days of the year, especially if you live in the eastern third of the United States. If we move this on to Thursday, you can see that we're dealing with some 20s that are moving a little bit further to the east. We're dealing with, again, some colder air, which is going to be shifting over to the east. So that's going to be a real trend. We're going to see a few different waves of cold air. So again, like I've been saying for the past few weeks, we're not going to see anything that's going to stick around for really more than a week. So that's going to apply for both the warm and the cold air. So I'm expecting that, again, this week will probably be rather cold, but you go into next week, it might actually be a little bit on the warmer side of things before cooling down once again. And the reason that's happening is because you're going to have intermittent troughs, which are going to be moving into the west, and you have to wait for those troughs to eventually move into the east before you actually get in on the cold air. So there will be some periods where there's, let's say, a trough in the east, you have another trough in the west, and then you have that middle point for the central part of the country. Well, now these areas are warm, so there's always going to be one part of the country that will be warm. That might be the west in some weeks. You could see that maybe in the central United States. You could see that in the east as well. So it's really just going to depend on where the troughs are, and then in between both of them, you're probably going to have a little area of warmer temperatures, at least for 3 or 4 days before it switches back. Now, if we move this on to Friday, which is November 5th, you can see that in the east we have some 30s and 20s up for those areas. So we're dealing with decently chilly temperatures there. Again, it's nothing that's going to be too crazy. It's actually fairly close to the average, or maybe a few degrees below. But it will feel noticeably cooler because we're not used to this as of right now, just because October was so awfully warm that really a lot of areas who might have been eased into the cold air in a regular October really were not eased into it. You kind of just got those 20s dropped on top of you, and it might be the first 20s of the year or even 30s of the year for a lot of areas. So the lack of cold air in October is going to make this cold air feel a lot colder than what it actually is. Moving on to Saturday, November 6th, really not too much changing there. Moving on to Sunday, again, you can see that we maintain that little trough into the east with another one which is moving on to the west coast as of right now. So then again, you can see that we have that little push of warmer air into the central plains. This is how it's going to work. We're going to have, again, colder temperatures on one side, colder temperatures on the other side. And that kind of just leaves a little ridge right in the middle where you would have those warmer temperatures. So, again, in between those two pockets of cold air, you'll have your little warm bubble to deal with. Now, moving this on to Monday, November 8th, you can see that we have, again, colder temperatures into the eastern slice of the country. Also into the northwest, it is starting to get a little bit colder. And then just to wrap up part 1 of this video, I just want to show you guys the average for the next 5 days from the European ensemble model. And you can see that we're looking at an average temperature that's going to be in Celsius about 4 to 7 degrees below normal. And if you were to convert that over to Fahrenheit, you're looking at more around 8 to about 16, 15 degrees below normal. So it'll be a few degrees below normal. It's nothing crazy, however. So it's not really as cold as if we were to, let's just kind of rephrase this. If you were to see a constant area of 3 or 4 degree below normal temperatures in October, this would not feel that cold because you would already be used to this. But again, the first couple of weeks of chilly temperatures always will feel fairly cold. It's also kind of like why in March or April, when you get that first 60 degree or 70 degree day, it feels really, really warm. Even though if you were to get that same 60 degree day in August, you might say, wow, it's actually pretty chilly outside. So it's all about your body getting used to it. And within a week or two of you getting these consistent temperatures, you'll get used to it. So it will feel cold for the next couple of days, but it looks like it probably will, at least you'll start to get acclimated to it because it will kind of be sticking around. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you to Trevin for sending in that photo. Again, this is part 1 out of 2. I won't be able to make a usual recording tomorrow, so I'm going to be pre-recording that video later tonight, and then scheduling that one to be uploaded, again, just because I'm not going to be able to make a video on that in that time frame. So, again, tomorrow's video is going to be pre-recorded. It's going to be the second part of this one. So we're going to continue talking about the colder temperatures, but we're going to look at more of the teleconnections and the upper air maps as well. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Any photos that you want to send in, send them over to my email address in the description down below, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Goodbye.